Welcome back to Under the Surface, the show where we talk about everything the Bazaar. In this episode, we look at how the world and lore of the Bazaar could be expanded into other media, like movies, TV shows, games, that sort of thing. So, let's dive under the surface. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we are going to talk about how the lore and world of the Bazaar could be expanded into other types of media. And I had this idea because several years ago in one of Reynad's, backyard nature filled Q&As, he had mentioned that he would like to see the Bazaar sort of grow beyond just this one game. And I have to assume he still feels that way, although it's definitely like a hard thing to grow this out past the current game when they've been working so long on just this one thing. But we both came up with a few ideas about how we could see the world and lore sort of expanded, because we both really, or at least I have, fallen in love with sort of the world that they've created. And I'm sure you have too. It's really cool. And right now we only have a very limited amount of information. We just sort of get scraps that are thrown at us, and we want to see a lot more.
I mean, in general, like we have this game right now, and it right now fulfills all our heart's desires, and I guess we are getting those weekly videos, usually at least, that further along our understanding of the world, and we grow closer to the characters of the Bazaar. But there are other approaches to that stuff. Like, imagine Arcane, that came out recently and was a great success. And I think I would like to see something similar for the Bazaar.
Yeah, that's like the first thing my mind goes to is big budget animated show, because the world is set up for it. But obviously it took League of Legends like 15 years and hundreds of millions of dollars to make that show, and apparently it was a big loss for them.
Yeah.
But I guess we have some ideas that are crazy like that and some that are more grounded. And the first really grounded idea I have is that we've gotten of course, you just mentioned like the Atlas Archives videos, but we also have gotten the Vanessa sort of introduction video that also, I think, plays in game when you first boot up the game or when you first play her. That kind of tells who she is, has a little bit of like an animation for her ship and when she comes to Bazaar and all this stuff. I think at the very minimum, it would be really cool to have one of those for every single playable hero, because like even with Dooley, like we don't really know his backstory. We just kind of know who he is or who they are or whatever.
I mean,
but
it's very vague.
Yeah. And you get kind of connected to a character when you know what they're really doing here or what their purpose is. So I think having like that in maybe the Atlas in game, where you could go in and when you click on the hero and the Atlas, you get all their lore, and then you also get a video that kind of tells you like, this is how they came to the Bazaar, this is why they're here, this is what their plan is, their goals. And it helps with that role playing aspect more.
Yeah, I
which
agree.
is kind of why I play the game.
I mean, taking Pygmalion, for example, as a comparison, because the video you were talking about just now is on the YouTube channel, and also we were talking about it in our very first Under the Surface episode, so that's a throwback. But yeah, comparing that to Pygmalion, like, we know that he's all about economy, he's aspiring to be the greatest merchant of all time, and he's all about properties, but why exactly? And also we might assume that Elder is somehow related to him, but like, is he a grandfather figure, or maybe an uncle, or maybe just some sort of authority in their community? I think all those gaps could be filled, and I assume they will be filled, because we might be sort of like OGs in terms of the Bazaar world, and we are following this game for a long time now. But I guess a lot of people have just joined, and the game might feel fresh for them, and it's still sort of fresh, right? So more videos expanding the lore is definitely on brand and definitely wanted, at least by me.
Yeah, and also a lot of people aren't doing what we do, where they seek out the info, because it is kind of a thing you have to find.
Yeah.
They just boot up the game and play the game. So kind of forcing it into them a little bit would probably help them connect with the world.
I mean, you don't really need to force lore on people, because if somebody doesn't want to engage with that part of the game, they shouldn't be forced to do it. But like, for lore freaks like us, I think that would be very enjoyable part of the game, or at least media related to the game. So yeah, short videos explaining the backstories of our characters is something that we crave, simply put.
And then another thing that I think is more in line with that, where they could definitely do it, and it wouldn't be too like this isn't like a pipe dream. This is something that could happen even now. Is short stories written in the Bazaar world, because we know Isaac Marion, who is the lore world builder for the Bazaar, he's there full time now, from what I've heard. So he's fleshing out this entire world. He's probably writing a ton of lore that we'll never see, because that's how like a lot of world building is the stuff you don't even hear about, right?
Mhm.
So it would be really cool if some of those stories that are really important to the Bazaar or to the characters could get, even like 2,000 word, 4,000 word short stories, maybe compile them into a book. Just something simple for the fans like us that want to read it would be really cool.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe a full length novel one day would be pretty awesome. But
You know what? You are talking about those short stories, and you know what? My mind already starts wearing, and that would be a great series to make, like YouTube audiobooks, sort of those short stories. Like we could read them out.
that's awesome.
Right. So that series, I think, could happen if we get some short stories published in some way. I think I would be interested in that.
Yeah, I would be. And honestly, even if we didn't do that, they should put it on the main channel or whatever. You know what I mean? They should do it themselves and put it on the main channel. Have the voice actors voice act stuff.
I mean, that could be cool, but voice actors are expensive. So, if they don't, we have we have a new series on our hands.
Yeah, please don't, Tempo.
Okay, but in the same manner, short stories, right? Things that usually are done to further the story, besides like written words, are comics, right? Do you enjoy reading comics?
Yeah, I used to read a lot of comics and a lot of like manga. I haven't really lately, but I would definitely read Bizarre comics. And I've read the Overwatch comics when they released those for lore reasons. So I think it'd be a lot easier and a really cool way to like I feel like more people would read a comic over a short story, if you get what I mean.
Possibly.
So
But I guess that's mostly depending on personal preference, because like I was really big on comic books when I was younger, but right now I feel like there's not enough depth for me, and I don't know, like I get sort of bored, I guess, looking at the pictures. I don't know, maybe that's just me, as in I personally don't even really read books. I prefer audiobooks much more, so I don't know, call it ADHD or something, but I need to do something else while I'm listening to a book. So yeah, that's why I was thinking about audiobooks earlier.
yeah, I'm sort of the same way too. I usually audiobook or read over comic. And I think a comic too, because you have to have all the art, is the story would probably be shorter,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to pay the artist a lot and it's a lot of time. So you're probably talking like, I don't know, 6 pages or something of a comic book versus a long sort of short story that
But
traverses the world.
yeah, I guess if they were to make a comic book, I feel like it should probably, be printed as a physical hard book copy for them to sort of like make a limited run and sell them out for like most, I don't know, not really desperate, but like most passionate people. So they could, recover at least some of the costs that, writing a comic book it requires.
Yeah, true. And I would love for like any of this stuff, but especially the comics, if you could access that in the Atlas. You know what I mean? If like for who it's relevant to,
Hmm.
or if it's a comic about Dooley, maybe you go to the Atlas and it's like, oh, Dooley has 3 comics written about him, and then you can read about his lore, read about a little fun story or whatever. That would be cool if it's all compiled there.
I guess maybe, though I would expect them to be on the website rather than in game. But I don't know, like it's up to them how they would handle that. But I suppose that like law stuff would probably happen on their website because it's probably easier to update.
Yeah, that's true.
But what about, and I think that you are going to get excited a bit, but what about other games? Because I'm pretty sure that when people see like ever expanding universe, something with deep lore, they are immediately thinking about an RPG,
Yeah.
And we have to already, like from the very beginning, tell you guys that making an RPG is expensive and time consuming. And Tempo is, what's it called? Elbows deep in making the bazaar as it is. And I don't think they have the experience or the time or the funds to start making a, an RPG like The Witcher or something like that. But to be fair, it seems cool, like it sounds cool on paper, but I think probably right now we don't have enough lore to make fully fleshed out RPG. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely a down the road sort of idea. Like the game needs to become like so successful that it warrants having another studio that's probably bigger than this game, like than the 80 or 100 people that are on this game. Because I
Yeah.
know like most studios have several hundred, if not thousands,
Oh yeah.
of people to make RPGs. But something I kind of thought about was maybe a Disco Elysium style RPG could fit the vibe of the world more, like isometric and
Mostly about
like
exploration and something like detective story or something.
yeah, something along those lines where you can maybe explore the bazaar as a specific character and not I don't know, it could kind of be just a little more of a little taste than like Skyrim,
Hmm.
or something to that degree where you're exploring this huge vast world.
I mean,
You're only in a district of the bazaar or something.
okay, yeah, I mean, I guess people would crave the RPG game for the exact purpose to explore the bazaar for themselves, like to explore every alleyway, to find all the merchant stalls that they know from the game, to go to Jules's cafe and all that stuff. And, regarding Disco Elysium, I would probably consider that game more of a visual novel with RPG elements, maybe. But
Yeah.
I suppose maybe a visual novel should be cheaper than an RPG because it's much lighter on the mechanics. But I don't know. I'm not a design game designer, game director, whatever. I'm not in the in that field, so my understanding is very surface level.
Yeah, because if we said what I really wanted, I want like a Skyrim level, like a Witcher level game where you can explore every aspect of the bazaar and maybe even go to the areas outside the bazaar, and see every character from the game and everything. But gosh, like even if this game is mega successful, that may never get there. So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if they get some, I don't know, if they add a second subscription or a third subscription, maybe we'll get there. But do you want to see a second subscription in the game?
If it'll give me an RPG, sure. Maybe like the IP becomes so famous that they decide to like another company decides they want to pick up and make a game with it. That would be kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that was my next thought. Like that was the next thing that I wanted to mention is that they might lend their IP to other studios for those studios to make games inside the bazaar. Like imagine Riot Forge, which is unfortunately discontinued as of right now. But yeah, there were games in the Runeterra world which were not made by Riot precisely. So I guess that's an avenue to pursue. But
Yeah.
in terms of like games which do not really take much time and effort, is those would be platformers, I would assume. And how popular platformers are, I cannot tell. But I personally enjoy like 3D platformers collectathon style, that you have 1,000 coins and scattered across the world and go collect them. Like I like being a Roomba.
Yeah, that's how I am too. My favorite game of all time is probably Mario Odyssey. There's not a lot of lore to be
I
had there
mean,
necessarily and everything, but I would play it.
to be fair, your favorite game is The Bazaar and top 2 is Mario Odyssey. Like, to be clear.
Well, the Bazaar isn't a game; it's a lifestyle.
I see. Okay,
It's
that
called a
makes sense.
game, or it's a child's card game, as Reynad puts it. So
Right, so that's an idea, a collectathon style game, but I'm not really sure how that would be approached, because is the Bazaar, like, is its style, enough, or is it conductive for that sort of experience? Not 100% sure.
yeah, I could see. I don't know. It'd be cool if like a fan of the Bazaar like made sort of like an indie little free game that tested that out. I could see that happening, but yeah, I don't know what the mechanics would be. I don't know. I just can't really imagine what that actually looks like. But
I mean, hard to say, but maybe it could be connected to something like an event. Like we already talked about this City Rising event, sort of, right? So maybe the platformer could make sense in the situation where the city is sort of crumbling. So you do not have really alleyways or, some form of like regular city layout, but a crumbling city, as I said. So in that sense, you would sort of jump from place to place, and there would be some form of chaos introduced in that situation. So maybe that would work.
yeah.
Do you have any other ideas?
I was going to say, we also talked about in the Bizarre merchandise episode, sort of a lore slash art book type product that we would be really interested in. And this might be, less interesting than like a novel type thing or a short story collection or something. But I don't know, that's a cool way to expand. That's a really easy way to expand the stuff. Just take a bunch of internal documents and internal art that maybe we haven't seen before, but that's canon, and stick it in a book and sell it. I don't know. It would be an easy way to feed us more Bizarre and make more money,
Yeah, I
because
guess
I would buy it.
compiling things that already exist is rather cost effective, but we have no idea how much is waiting behind closed doors. But I assume a lot. I guess they are still drip feeding us with all the stuff that is happening, because they need to have some sort of buffer, especially if, let's say, Mr. Marion decides to leave the company, or I don't know, breaks his arm, or maybe decides to write another novel and doesn't have as much time for the Bazaar. But yeah, I guess.
I assume because the drip feed of lore has been like, I mean, it's like that meme where it's like the like guy that's starving is getting like one little drip, and then like all the water is going to the really big fat guy or whatever.
Yeah, I
That's
know
what it
what you
feels
mean.
like. That's what it feels like sometimes. But I assume they're holding off on a lot of stuff for full release and sometime after, because we did just get kind of an interesting Mac video that felt a little higher produced than some of the stuff and a little more lore heavy. So maybe we're going to be getting some big lore drops with, new characters and 1.0, because we still are in beta. So
Yeah,
even though the
that's
game's been
true.
out for like 6 months, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I would expect that once they hit 1.0, they are going to pick up the steam and, start to actually promote the game more heavily. I haven't seen any ads for the game, like, for example, on Reddit or on YouTube. So I feel like they're still waiting for the right time.
Yeah. And it was definitely a smart decision to wait, considering the backlash with open beta and everything.
I
But I
mean,
had, oh,
to
go
be
ahead.
fair, the backlash didn't consider open beta, but the monetization of open beta. Like, the game is still excellent.
Yeah. A lot of these people complain, and yeah, you see video like pictures and stuff of people like refunding the game, but I think it's a pretty small minority, to be honest. Most people still seem to be playing. The game seems to be as popular as ever. But I had a better idea, or a new idea for how the world could be expanded. Now this is down the line, but imagine live action Bazaar like the Minecraft movie.
Oh god.
Can you imagine Pygmalion?
As Jack Black?
Well, no, I think The Rock would play Pygmalion.
Okay, yeah, that's a good casting choice. Anne Hathaway as Vanessa,
Yeah, that's fine with me. Whatever gets people to go see the movie.
or maybe Margot Robbie as Vanessa. And then we
That
need
sounds
Danny DeVito as Dooley.
Danny DeVito as Jules.
Oh, that's a bold choice.
You gotta see the director's vision through.
Paint him purple and that's it.
Okay, well, I guess that's all we got to say about this topic. So
Yeah.
let us know in the comments below how you want to see the lore expanded. Which one of these ideas do you think they should go with? And thanks for watching.
Yeah, and okay, yeah, one last thing. Like, how do you feel about second subscription to fund the RPG?
Yeah, well, we already know they're all gonna love it. So
Take my money.
all right, yeah, but like and subscribe, and we'll see you on Unhedged channel on Monday.
Exactly. Yeah. Bye.
See you something.